Okay. So the benefits of this reporting process are threefold. First, to prove the value of your program. The heart of the reporting process is an outcomes-focused logic model that enables you to articulate how your program helps participants achieve your mission. We ask you to forecast out on your end outcomes, or if your program is complete, to report on those end outcomes. However, we don't want you to shortchange your program by ending the logic model at the point that you can monitor. So, through our best available data approach, you can provide estimates or extrapolations for those end outcomes if your program doesn't have the current data or the capacity to measure them. And second, to improve the value of program outcomes. The report helps identify gaps in your performance measurement plan and communicate with one document the program's intended outcomes to funders, stakeholders, and implementers. And when I say funders, I don't just mean eBay. You can take this report and share it with any funders or potential funders in order to give them a one-page summary of the impacts of your program. And third, to save time on future reporting. For most of you, your program has not yet started or is in the initial stages of implementation. You'll use this reporting process to forecast out your end program targets. By front-loading reporting at these initial stages and then updating the same report at program completion, you can save time. And with that, let's get started with the reporting process. So these are the different parts of the report, and we'll go through each of them in turn. Overview, intervention, beneficiaries, outcomes, budget, and narrative. In the onboarding, you'll receive an email notification to accept and allocate an eBay investment to your report. You're guided through this reporting process with self-audit checklists and other support information, and this will come on Monday, January 7th. You'll have until Friday, January 18th to submit that initial draft report for review. Then the report will come to us, and we will provide iterative feedback, both to you directly, and then once you review that feedback and send it back for verification, then eBay will also review and confirm so that you can provide the sort of the best report that's most clear and logical, and also that eBay best understands those impacts and goals that you're working on. So at this point, I want to pause and say that after the training, I'll still be here. So, every time that you have a question or need something, you can click the help button in the system, and those emails go straight to me. I am happy to answer any questions that you have about the reporting process. And, if I don't have an answer because it's about your specific grant agreement, the least that I can do is connect you to a program manager if they're related to your specific program and not related to the reporting process. But at any time, you can reach out to me with questions about how to format your report and how to best sort of share your story with eBay. So the logic model helps you describe the process that beneficiaries go through with your program, all the way to success in meeting your program goal. And there are 5 stages to the logic model: capacity building, which is about creating, enhancing, or maintaining resources that can support beneficiaries. This is separate from beneficiaries actually taking advantage of them. But if your program takes advantage of existing capacity, you can skip this step. So if you're not building new processes, distributing new curriculums, training new staff, then you may not have any capacity building indicators in your model. For reached, this is the number of people who have access to your program. Learn, the number of people who gain skills or capacity. And for learn and act, it may not be relevant to your program, so it's not required, but you should include them if increasing skills or capacity of individuals is part of your program's model. Or for act, the number of people who take action due to your program. This is not the end sort of final social impact action. It's an intermediate action. So for a program with the goal of getting students to graduate high school, attending class, studying, or doing homework might be an indicator at the ACT level. And then succeed. So this is the number of people who are impacted by your program. It's required, but again, you can estimate or speculate based on existing data, based on similar programs, based on other research that supports or provides evidence for your logic model. And going back into this sort of reporting process, the reporting process begins with an email invitation inviting you to sign up for the platform. This email includes a reporting schedule and a link to a training deck and webinar. Once you have the information you need, go to the platform, create an account, and start writing your report. Now you should be using the email address that's in that invitation. However, if you are either another member of the staff and didn't receive that email, you get it forwarded on to someone else, what you'll do is you'll create an account using that first email address and then go into account, manage users, and add any other member of your team who will be working on the report. So just make sure that you'll be using that initial email address, adding others to the account once it's created. And here you can see that in investments to be allocated, there's an investment. So you'll be able to click accept and allocate, confirm the investment, and then create a new report. In the future, you may also want to update a report if you're getting additional payments, or copy a report for a new year. If you're being funded for a program over multiple years with multiple investments. And then add a program name and a brief description in your own words of the program, and your program will show up as a report in progress. Click on the program to open it and actually begin the reporting. The first section, overview, is where you put in your sort of elevator speech. This is the high-level overview of your program, beneficiaries, and outcomes. A good way to start, we help these people achieve this outcome by providing these services. And then the duration of your program, oftentimes a year, sometimes less. A web-friendly copy of your logo. And then the stage. You will be starting with your initial forecast. You may not have data at this point, and that's fine. You'll be forecasting out your outcomes to the end of the program at this stage. Later, you can come back into the report for an interim or a final report and change this stage, and then you'll be updating any information that may have changed in your report. Now here is the intervention section. Unlike traditional grant reports that require longer open field activity and service descriptions, the intervention section is looking for a categorical summary of your core services. So first you select the primary intervention type, or you select the primary core service or activity. So here is an education program, so education, and then equal opportunity in education. And then the intervention type, so direct service. For many of you, your program distributes goods, services, training, knowledge directly to beneficiaries. Or capacity development, that's improving the efficiency of existing organizations or service providers. And then policy and advocacy, changing laws, policies, resource allocations. You don't have to only do one of these things. We're just asking for the primary intervention type here. And then the program's duration and frequency of engagement with beneficiaries. My example here is an hour-long program that runs for 2 to 4 sessions over several weeks for a typical participant. And so you'll be estimating what a typical participant engages in your activity. Now for beneficiaries, the beneficiary section is designed to describe your direct beneficiaries. In the case of a capacity building or policy initiative, the beneficiary may not be the person that your program works directly with, but it may be the client of an organization that you support, or the student of teachers that you train, or the constituents of leaders that you educate. And so thinking about, when you talk about your mission, who that end beneficiary is, that's who's captured here in the beneficiary section. You start with providing beneficiary locations, as many as you'd like. That can be as specific as a site address or as broad as a country. Then demographics. Select demographic categories that are really significantly represented by your target beneficiaries. When you start to get into, 5% of this, then it may be that you've gone too deep into the demographic categories. And then here is describing important characteristics that aren't already captured by the standardized categories that you've selected. I would avoid including programmatic sort of implementation details, as those belong in the sort of overview section or core services or activities. And if you find yourself describing more than one beneficiary population, those gain distinct program benefits, it may be appropriate to create separate social impact reports for each, and this helps you track those individual impacts for each group. However, if you have different populations or different beneficiary groups that are participating in the same program, then you can include them together in order to get to similar services and similar outcomes. So here, we're now at the logic model. This is the heart of the True Impact platform. The first thing that you do is select the type of program that best describes the services you provide. You'll be presented with a few options based on the general category of programs that eBay has focused on. And you can also add additional social impact indicators as needed. And then for each stage, you'll be presented with relevant indicators. So for reached, act, and learned, you usually only have one indicator. Reached is participate in a program. Learn is build skills or capacity, and act is take action. However, there will be multiple capacity building and social impact indicators. And so once you've selected all of the relevant indicators, the program will walk you through how you define that indicator, how you measure it, and how you forecast what your forecast for the number who reach that. So here in step 1 for this indicator, which is participate in program, you define reach. So how much will a beneficiary have to participate in order to be reached by the program? My recommendation for how to think about this success criteria is think about it as a threshold where you could say, okay, this participant has or has not participated based on this test. The number of people who participate in 80% of trainings, or whatever your definition of participation is. And for social impact, again, this is a threshold of success, but they're the end in sort of impacts there. So a social impact success criteria here may be gets a job paying at least 20% above the poverty level, or gains housing for at least 3 months. I think many of you are familiar with this kind of definition. They're often called SMART goals or SMART indicators. They're specific, measurable, attainable, timely. But what we're asking for is a way for you to communicate really specifically who is reaching each target at each stage of your impact model. The second step here is to forecast your reach. So again, at the initial stage, you're forecasting how many people you think will be reached by the end of your report. And then you'll define a level of measurement, either guess, estimating from data, or directly measuring. While it would be ideal if all programs use direct measurement, we know that that isn't possible, but you're helping provide more information to funders and to others, and being more transparent about how many folks you think will reach that end mission goal. And then you'll define here the category of measurement. For step 4, you can upload measurement instruments if relevant or available. In some cases, if you're estimating, extrapolating, guessing, you may not have measurement instruments. And if you do, we're not asking for any personally identifiable data about your participants. This would be survey tools or any other instruments that you have that would help provide evidence for how you're collecting this metric. And then you can just describe the measurement process in your own words. Once you've completed this, for this particular indicator, you can go through each relevant indicator to your program, upload any relevant documents, add any notes. Again, those are both optional sections. Here is the highest level budget where you're just defining your direct expenses, direct in kind, and any overhead expenses you have. Overhead in kind, which is like donated space and in kind donations. You can upload a budget or any additional budget information that is necessary, that's also optional. And then here we get to the impact receipt. This is what eBay will see. It is a summary of all of the information that you've provided in the report. So you can know what they see, and you can help craft a report that's clear and concise. And then you'll get to the submit button. And here I've highlighted basically what each of these warnings is. A green check is complete. A gray circle means that there's sort of no information that's been provided in that section. The yellow is a warning that you can return to and dismiss, and a red X is an error. So you have to address the particular issue. Once you've resolved any of those issues, all of the checks will be green, and the submit for feedback button will become active. And so you can submit, and that enables me to view the report, provide feedback, and you'll receive an email when I've submitted that feedback to you, so that you can go back into your system. You'll see feedback on the side, and you can make edits as necessary and click resolve, send it back. Now, after I provide feedback, eBay will also view and provide feedback for you, and then after the iterative feedback process, your report will be published and submitted. So at the very end of the program, you can change the stage in overview from initial or interim to final, and then you just update your numbers. So in the outcome section, you can see your initial forecasts, and you'll add the actuals right next to it and submit. Again, this means that while there's more work to be done at the front end here, you will have a lot less work to do at the end, because so much of your report has already been crafted. So at this final stage, you'll be able to change the status, make a couple updates, and then submit and have a final report for your project. Okay, so that is what I wanted to go through. I did want to reiterate that you can have as many folks on the platform as you need to. Just add them as users in the account section, and that we are not asking you to provide any information that you don't already have, or collect data that you don't already have. This is a forecast of your impacts based on your targets for the sort of program. And if you don't have particular information, then in the measurement section, you can click, the estimate based on your professional experience, based on existing data in the field, or similar programs or past programs. I am going to unmute all of you. You can mute yourself as necessary, and take questions before we close out. Okay.
Hi, I had a question. Emily here, speak from Capacity. So on a couple of slides back, you showed that there was an interim report. Is that, sorry, I didn't fully understand, that is the draft version that we're putting together, or is that an interim report due mid-year to eBay?
Yep, that's a good question. So the current report would be an initial forecast. That means the program has not yet begun, or is just at the beginning of implementation. The interim report could be a mid program report that you share with eBay that's dependent upon the reporting dates of your specific grant agreement. And then again, the final report, that date is specific to your grant agreement.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, this is Sarah from eBay, and my sincerest apologies for being a couple minutes late to the call. I was trapped in another meeting. So thanks to Sadie for getting things started. And just to sort of follow up on that question, we very much recognize that a lot of these projects are going to still be going on as we're asking for the reporting deadlines that we put out. And so just to sort of emphasize again, you're doing it with sort of your best estimates at that time, so that we sort of have an understanding of what you think you might accomplish. And then just to sort of emphasize that we recognize many of these projects may not be fully completed by the sort of the January, February deadlines that we've put out there, so that we sort of have what information you have available, and we're not, pressuring you to complete a project that needs more time just for this reporting requirement. So I'll just, add that as a footnote to that comment as well.
Thank you. So just to be very clear, like the funding we received was for the whole of 2019. So our final report presumably would be due at the end of our program, which would be December 2019. As far as I'm aware, I mean, I'm sitting in for a colleague on this, so I might be out of scope. So the report you're expecting, this final report at the end of February, this is not something that we can deliver because we won't even have started the program yet.
Right. And so
sorry if this is high level, yeah.
No, it's really, really great to ask it so that we can articulate better. Everyone will be expected to complete an initial forecast at the beginning of 2019. That is part of this forecasting process where you'll be communicating the targets of the program to eBay. However, many of your programs will not be completed by then, nor for another year. And that's where you'll be creating this initial forecast, and your final report will be at the end of your program. So in the case of capacity, that would be in December or January, December of 2019 or January of 2020.
Perfect. That's very clear. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And yet again, if there are not other questions, you may find yourself with other questions after the email arrives on January 7th. And so don't hesitate to use that help button. My email address is the one that's connected to the calendar invite. I'm going to be sending you an email with this deck and with this training today. So you can save that email address and email me anytime, or use eBay at trueimpact.com. That goes to our support ticketing system, but I still will be the point of contact for you at any time.
Hi, Sadie. Thanks for the presentation. And hi, Sarah. This is Natasha from Thrive Refugee Enterprise in Australia. I just had a question around the measurement instruments that you mentioned. So looking at surveys and that sort of thing. More specifically, I wanted to know, I guess, what kind of other areas we should be considering in terms of the data collection process, and if there's any support or other tools that you would recommend in terms of this early stage in forecasting?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Thrive program? I mean, me and the rest of the cohort here, so we can have a better sense of what work you do and what the outcomes you hope for are.
Sure. So Thrive is a small not-for-profit, and we basically support refugees and asylum seekers in Australia to integrate faster and more successfully in the country by starting up their own businesses. So the three core functions that we provide are business support, so helping them to develop business plans and cash flow projections. We provide microfinance loans of up to $20,000, and then we provide them with post-loan business mentoring in the community. So the sort of general impact at a high level that we see is that they are more socially and economically integrated into society, as well as, creating a ripple effect in terms of creating jobs and that sort of thing.
Oh, wonderful. So what I'm hearing from you is job creation and social integration may be things that you already collect or understand, at least anecdotally, as the outcomes of the program.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay, great. So then, it sounds like what you are already tracking is what you'd be sharing here in your report based on, your kind of past experience with the program.
Mm-hmm.
And so your end outcomes, are the number of jobs created, potentially also, in addition to these economic benefits like the number of businesses that are strengthened or even the number of incomes that are improved, also a well-being indicator around social isolation. So that may be something that you have business owners and participants self-report in a survey, or you can share that information anecdotally or based on other understanding. So
Okay.
I think that there's really this sort of two-pronged outcomes. One is an economic and one is a social or civil outcome that I definitely wouldn't want to diminish and would encourage you to report both of them. And it sounds honestly like you do have at least some pretty clear tracking on the economic indicators.
Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. And I just had another question. In terms of the reporting process, it was really helpful to kind of go through all of the different steps. Will there be a list of kind of the requirements of that pretty much outline the report and what we'd need to submit prior to the portal opening on the 7th?
That's a great question. I don't want to hamper your holidays, but I can share a list of the indicators with you if you have time and want to workshop before before starting the reporting process. Does anyone else think that would be helpful or useful?
That would be super helpful. We're actually revising our current impact measurement scheme in over here, so it would be very helpful to see also what you would recommend. So put that in.
Yes, and I can say this is Anna Pickman from Alice. We would love that as well. And I actually was going to ask that question too, so thank you.
No problem. Okay, so I will send that along with this deck.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, I'm sorry you didn't get to kick us off, but you want to bring us on home?
Yes, thank you, Sadie. And again, my apologies for not getting to kick things off. Had I been able to open the call, I would have thanked you all so much for being on this call with us and joining and partnering with eBay on all of your exciting projects. eBay Foundation, or ebay.org, as we're starting to rename ourselves, has been around for about 20 years. And, in that time, we've had an opportunity to support organizations with over $42 million in grants and over 1,700 organizations. And so we are just so excited that we are getting to work closely with your organizations as part of that larger story of our work. Most of you on this call are recipients of grants as part of our Global Give project. And so you've already had an opportunity to, meet with some of our employee teams and who are going to be working with you. And this is the first year we're doing the Global Give grant making competition. And so there's been lots of learnings and lots of exciting projects that have come out of that. And so we really see this partnership with True Impact as a part of the storytelling around that, and really finding ways to measure the impact of these projects and really be able to capture that information and celebrate it and sing from the rooftops, both inside and outside of eBay, all of the good work you're doing and the good work that our employees are partnering with you on to really try to deepen the impact of your work. And so thank you so much for that. And I appreciate you being on the call. I will sort of double down on Sadie's statement that, you can press that help button or reach out to her for that troubleshooting as you roll through this. In addition to eBay gleaning this information from these projects, we are hopeful you might have some side benefit in being able to share these stories with other funders or others outside, so that there is some added value to using this true impact platform. And also want to make myself available as well if there are questions about this process and the timing and the reporting. I'll say again, this is our first year in doing the Global Give, and so there are lessons to be learned. And so please don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. And thank you for the work you're doing and for partnering with our employees in the way you are.
All right.
Is it time for one more question?
What?
Is there time for one more question?
From you, I suppose.
Mandy Mulford, St Elizabeth's in Eastbourne, UK. Obviously, we've got our own expected outcomes and successes that we hope that will come out of the projects. But how do they tally up with eBay's expectations?
That's a great question. It's built into the logic model system. So eBay has selected a set of logic model templates with specific indicators that will help them understand your impacts within the context of their overall sort of entrepreneurial focus. And so as you look at the indicators and understand how you're building economic empowerment for women, they're also able to take those indicators and see how they're building economic empowerment globally. So they've sort of already had their vision embedded into the tool itself, and the tool is just going to guide you through so that they can get the metrics that they need. Now, if there is a discrepancy in the grant agreement with the report or any sort of if eBay has questions, that's where the iterative feedback process comes in. And so I will be providing feedback based on internal logic, the clarity of your outcomes, on helping you provide the most evidence for your model. And eBay is coming in to compare the report with their understanding of your project. And so you'll be able to have a chance to make sure that those expectations that they have align with your goals.
And this is Sarah from eBay. I thank you, Sadie, for providing that perspective on it. That's very helpful. I guess I would just add a footnote to that as well, that when the grant agreements for the Global Give grants were sent out, we did not include very, prescribed metrics. We really did try to keep the language pretty broad to the overall mission and project that you were doing, because we do not want to be in a position of, sort of putting down some very specific data for you to have to hit. This is really an opportunity for you to tell us what you're doing and what that story looks like within the sort of broad project description as we understand and have been communicated to about what that project looks like. So it's not that we're looking for specific benchmarks to be hit. This is really your opportunity to sort of illustrate and provide greater color and detail to that larger narrative.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes, very, thank you.
Okay, great.
Wonderful. So I will be in touch over email with all of you, and you'll receive the invitation to report in on January 7th. However, you can email me or email ebay@trueimpact.com at any time, and we'll be in greater communication in the new year. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks so much to all of you.
Bye.